the Karearea Aero Blade propeller. So I randomly ran into this on Banggood, and I could not help myself but pick up a couple of sets. And I have all of them out here that I have for a reason, which I'll tell you. But before I get started about this prop, I have to point out that I'm really just conveying my experience with this prop and my own personal views and ideas about this prop. I am in no way against Karearea. I don't have a very high opinion of them, but that's my personal opinion, and I'm only going to be talking about my views about this prop and my experience with the prop. The Karearea kids are not really thrilled with me for whatever reason. I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this video, and I'm sorry if I offended anybody, but I'm only going to be sharing my own personal experience with this prop. So the goal of this prop, which I do give them a lot of credit for at least trying something very new and original, is to somehow gain more grip on the air. And so what they've done is that they have these radial ribs on the prop, and you can see that they're kind of hefty ribs on the top and the bottom. You can see them on the bottom as well. And so when I first saw this, I was like, oh, interesting. But then I thought about it for just 1 second more, and I was like, well, isn't the air going this way? So how is this going to improve anything if the airflow is perpendicular to the direction of these ribs? And then I thought about it a little bit further, and I'm like, okay, well, when the prop spins, you sort of get like a washing of the air out to the end of the blades, and maybe these ribs will kind of prevent the wind or the air or the flow from washing as quickly down the end of the blade, and it could possibly do something. But then if you think about it a little bit further, it's most likely just causing more drag and inefficiency, because the air has all this area to kind of bunch up. It's not going to like stick to the side of the blade. It can go up and down or all over the place. So it really just needs to make it over these ribs in its direction that it's flowing over the blade, which is probably not doing too much in the way of any grip or efficiency. Now, they do have a nice winglet on the end of this prop, and that is really nice. And what this winglet is supposed to do, which you see them on planes, wings, kind of like everything nowadays has some sort of a winglet. And on our propellers, it does tend to make a notable difference. However, there are different ways to design this winglet such that it is supposed to do its job. This particular design is one that it prevents the vortices from forming as robustly on the end of the blade as it's spinning through the air. So the vortex coming off the end of the blade is just a lot smaller, because you don't get the contamination of the wind or the airflow from the bottom and the top mixing too easily. Now, another way to do this is to just give it like give the airflow a direction to kind of like stick to the blade and sweep out, and just give it a nice sharp point so that it produces smaller vortices off the end of the blade. But they've gone with this method. I cannot comment on whether one or the other is better. So this is a 5.5 gram blade, which I would say is a pretty impressive weight for having all of this extra plastic in the ribs going down the blade. It's also a very hefty blade. As they say in the description, it's like an 8.6 millimeter hub. That's a pretty hefty hub. And the prop nut sits inside the hub, which I'm not terribly sure why. Maybe they're just trying to widen the hub so they can get this incredibly drastic scoop on the prop. It's very wide and very drastic, and it reminds me a lot of the racecraft props, the original racecraft props. And that's a good thing to bring up, because now I'll talk about how this thing flies. So the reason I have all of these props out here is because I have 3 bags of this prop, and there's 2.5 sets in each bag. So that's 7.5 sets of props that you're looking at back here. And the problem is that not a single one is balanced. They're all garbage. They're unusable. What comes to mind is the original Nazgul prop that I tested several years ago, and that was so poorly balanced it was unflyable. I felt like it was going to explode my ESCs and my motor, so let's just get rid of all those and take a look at my platforms, my flying platforms. So this is a racing prototype that I've been working on, and the reason I'm showing it now is because I've decided to cancel this design entirely, and I'm going for a totally different design. If you want to copy it, go for it, because you don't know what it looks like inside, because that's what's special. And so the concept of the arches is that it is a lot more durable, a lot more protective of all of your equipment. And I've been working on a design, a new racing design for like over a year. And so I've been testing a lot of different mechanisms for arches. I recently came across the Lycan, which somebody else tipped me off on, and the designer of the Lycan and all of those products is a genius. Like, he's a really good engineer, and that frame is really awesome, but it's sort of in a different category than I'm going for. So more about that later, but let's talk about how this prop performs on a racing platform. So as I explained, the balance is so awful, you can't go full throttle. It just goes nuts. Like, you can't see where you're going because it's so shaky. And if this was just a couple years back, you essentially could not fly a quad with these props because the code could not handle it. Now, I did adjust my filters and things quite a bit to try and do something about this shake, but it's almost as bad as if you just cut a little bit of one prop off the end and it just doesn't work. And like I said, I tested every single one of those props. I put 7.5 sets on my quad to test because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just one prop, or maybe it's just my batch. I don't know. I'm really giving this Karearea guys a chance. I'm not really trying to say anything negative about them. This is not my intention. I'm just sharing my experience with these props. And so the flight performance is really hard to gauge. And the reason why it's interesting to bring up the racecraft props is because those props from way back when, 50, 51, whatever it was back then, the first one that came out, those props were really super aggressive. And as a result, they feel really grippy. And the Avan prop that came out down the road was similarly very aggressive, but also incredibly grippy. And that has a lot to do with the pitch and the design of the actual scoop of the blade, because it's just so aggressive. And when you have an aggressive blade like that, you can't help but have really good grip. So this prop, when you do push it fast, it does tend to grip pretty well. However, it's very hard to say if that has anything to do with the actual ribs on the prop. Now, moving over to my acro platform, which is this thing right here, a lot of the same thing. Very unflyable because it just shakes everything to pieces. I can't go full throttle because I can't because I don't want to break my quad. I don't have the patience to rebuild the thing. The potential grip on the prop is similarly felt as any steep pitch prop will feel. Actually, it feels a lot like the Gemfan 5051 or 5152 from a while back. That prop was actually a really nice prop. It feels very grippy like that prop, as well as the racecraft props. But the, again, performance is very questionable. The amp draw on this prop is also quite extreme. It's up right by the Avan prop. It's gonna suck your battery dry pretty quick. The speed you get for the prop, for all those amps, is not terribly impressive. And the response on the prop is simply the worst response I've felt on a 5-inch prop in a really long time. I don't know if that has to do with how aggressive the blade is or the possibly increased drag of the ribs that are actually being caused, but the response is just not good. It's hard to stay low to the ground. It's hard to fly high. It doesn't have good control feel at all. The durability of the plastic that this prop is made of is also quite poor. It is of my opinion that this is the wrong plastic choice, polycarbonate choice, whatever choice for a propeller. Maybe they chose this material because it is a little bit more stiff than your typical polycarbonate or typical plastic of most other props. However, when it bends, there's no way to bend it back, and it bends pretty easily without a lot of force. And if you do try to bend it back, you will never get it straight again, because as you can see, there's a ripple in the blade, and now the blade is doubly out of balance and unflyable, and it can bend from all sorts of locations on the blade. So yeah, and I honestly don't know why they put their name on this prop. I am very confused, because as far as I know, this company is trying to be a high-end company, and I would not put my name on a prop that's so incredibly poorly balanced, regardless of whether it's doing something or not, all the ribs are doing something or not, or whatever the performance is. I would test my props, just production bags, to make sure that they are at least usable. And I don't even know if the imbalance is coming from the actual plastic being imbalanced, or the hub being imbalanced, or the ribs that are just causing a lot of disruption in the air and causing some wobbles in the blades that are causing the imbalance. I honestly can't tell at all. But my general consensus about the ribs on this prop are that they are baloney. They do nothing but probably make things worse. But that's, again, my personal opinion only. I'm not trying to say anything bad about the Karearea company at all. Yeah, so let's leave it at that. I hope that I don't get too much flack for this video, but kudos to them for at least trying to do something new and original, because that's always a positive thing. I wish that they wouldn't just waste their development dollars on things that are gimmicks. They have quite a few gimmicks that have come out for the potentially one thing that they did make that may have been not as quite gimmicky as something else, but hey, I don't know. I'm just one guy. So take care, floss your teeth, and I hope this was fun to watch. Okay, take care. Bye.